All right, so we're going to talk about the law of cosines. And this is the law. It's a squared is equal to b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos of a. Now, actually, if you look at the letters in here, you can see what it's saying. It's saying that the side across from this angle A is going to equal the two other sides with all this stuff. So what you need to remember is that B and C are always adjacent to angle A. So this is how it works. So if you have a triangle, you have your sides A, B, and C, or so your angles A, B, and C, and then you have your sides, little a, little b, and little c, and you can see that you're just going to sub all these values into here. So let's do an example. So our first example, let's scroll down here. Our first example is going to be this. So we have this triangle here, and we're going to have an angle of 32 degrees. We're going to have this side 13.7 meters and 8.6 meters. And we're trying to find x. Now, what you can say, I guess, is how do I know which law to use? Do I use the sine law or the cosine law? This one you can look at and see the sine law is not going to work because for the sine law you need an angle and a side across from it and an angle and a side across from it. We don't have that. So we're going to need to use the cosine law. So that's a squared is equal to b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos of a. So all we're going to do is fill in the values. So we want to find the side that's across from the angle. So that's actually going to be a squared. So we're just going to write a squared is equal to, now we need to write down b squared and c squared. It actually doesn't matter which value you put in for b and c. You just need to put one of them in for b and one of them in for c. So I'm just going to say 13.7 squared plus 8.6 squared minus 2 times 13.7 times 8.6 cos of 32 degrees. And that's all we need to do. So all I did was I put in these two sides for B and C. And I knew that because they're adjacent to the angle that we're using. And it just like using Pythagorean's theorem, which this formula is actually based off of, just like using Pythagorean's theorem, we don't care where we put B and C. We can just put in either of these in that spot. So let's just simplify this. We're going to have a squared is equal to, let's see here, 13.7 squared is 187.69 plus and 8.6 squared is 73.96 minus, and all this stuff multiplied together, 2 times 13.7 times 8.6 is 235.64 multiplied by cos of 32, which is just 0.8480. Now be careful because these two things are still multiplied together. So don't add up all these together. You can add up these two. So we're going to get a squared is equal to, and a squared is actually this x we're trying to find. So we could just say x squared, but it's fine. So a squared is equal to 261.65 minus 199.82 because we multiplied these two together. 235.64 times 0.8480 is 199.82. So then we get a squared, or actually, let's just write x squared because we're trying to find x. X squared is equal to 61.83. We need to get x by itself, so we're going to get rid of the squared by square rooting each side. So we're going to get x is equal to 7.9 meters. And we found this side of the triangle using the cosine law. So all you do is sub in the things and then use algebra to solve it. Let's do another example. So let's do this. We're going to have this triangle here. and it's going to have three sides, so 5.7 centimeters and 4.6 centimeters and 4.3 centimeters. And it's going to have the angles as R, P, and Q. So the question is find angle P. So that's this one right here. So we're going to call this one theta. Okay? Doesn't matter what we call it. We're going to do the same thing with the formula. So we're going to have a squared is equal to b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos of a. That's the formula. So when we fill it in, we know that the first one is the side across from the angle we're dealing with. So the side across from the angle we're dealing with is 5.7. Then b and c, it doesn't matter which one we fill in first. Okay, it's just a number squared plus a number squared. Doesn't matter what order they're in. So we're just going to say 4.3 squared plus 4.6 squared minus 2 times 4.3 times 4.6 cos of theta. And that's what we're trying to find. So we need to get that by itself. So the first thing we're going to do is just square all the things. So we're going to get 32.49 is equal to 18.49 plus 21.16 minus, and if we multiply all this stuff together, 2 times 4.3 times 4.6, we're going to get 39.56 cos theta. So now what we need to do is add these things together. So we're going to get 32.49 is equal to 39.65 minus 39.56 cos theta. So we're going to move this to the other side, minus 39.65 minus 39.65. So what we end up getting is negative 7.16 is equal to negative 39.56 cos theta. So we're going to divide by that, negative 39.56 divided by negative 39.56. So then cos theta is going to equal negative 7.16 divided by negative 39.56. So that's going to equal 0.1810. And then we just take the cos to the negative 1 of each side. See, inverse cos of both sides. And what we get then is theta is equal to 80 degrees. So this angle in here is 80 degrees.